Welcome in everybody to the latest episode of the SPYPOINT podcast. Trent Marsh, your host, along with you again today. Remind everybody before we get started, rate, review, subscribe wherever it is that you're consuming this podcast, just to help expand the audience and let everybody find this content a little bit easier. This episode, excited to be joined by someone that I've podcasted with several times, but always under his banner and not mine. So I want to welcome Sam Ayers of the Wild Initiative podcast into the SPYPOINT podcast and let him be the visitor as opposed to the home team for a chance. So Sam, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everybody what it is, your background a little bit.
I was going to say maybe it feels like several times, but it was technically the first time we've recorded back at
I thought that was the second, though. Didn't we do one in Wichita? Did we not?
We didn't. We talked about it. We talked about a lot of crap, but
it never happened.
We ever recorded. We've known each other long enough to where, with both our personalities, it just feels like a long time.
Every time we're on the phone, it feels like we're recording a podcast.
Exactly.
For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what was I supposed to do? Introduce myself?
Introduce yourself and make people think that you're a credible and valuable member of the outdoor media.
Oh man, you told me there wouldn't be any hard
no
questions.
Hard questions. Exactly.
No. So yeah, my name's Sam. I run a podcast called the Wild Initiative, kind of a podcast and lifestyle brand. It's been the Wild Initiative for, I want to say 3 or 4 years now. I rebranded. It used to be called Living Country in the City back in the day. And a lot of that comes from, I kind of kicked all this off. I'm originally from Southern California. I worked in advertising and kind of the corporate world. And I, through a whole long story, got interested in hunting and wanted to start a podcast solely to ask interesting people questions because I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't have many people to reach out to. So I started this podcast.
So just to clarify, Southern California, not rife with hunting resources?
Actually, you'd be surprised.
I know I would. That's why I
incredibly surprised. Yeah.
As a good journalist, which is obviously what I consider myself, ask those interesting questions. But yeah, I know most people listening to it, they assume Southern California. Yeah, not a lot of hunters there, but I think most people would be surprised at how many hunters there are in California in general, but especially kind of that Southern California realm.
It can be hard to connect with other hunters. It's just not as built into the culture.
Right.
And you almost kind of, it can be a little intimidating to talk about it because you never know what kind of reaction you're going to get. And I also think there's a little bit of almost pride in being like almost fooling yourself into like, I'm the one hunter in Southern California and I'm a man into myself, know. I think there's kind of this little bit of drama, the last man standing kind of thing, even though we know it's not true. There was a little bit of that. So it's just not as easy to find those people. And as an adult, how do you, at this point, I know how to do it and I've taught people how to do it, but like you go into it, how do you meet people to take you hunting? Like my dad doesn't do it. My granddad didn't really do it. My brother would occasionally go shoot birds, but he doesn't do big game hunting.
Right.
I don't do. What do I do? So I start a podcast and I want to learn elk calling. So I call up Corey Jacobson. I want to learn about deer hunting. I talk to Robbie Denning or Mark Smith or all these guys. And I'm like, okay, if I'm going to learn something from someone, might as well go straight to the experts. Right. But yeah, and I got out of Southern California. I first moved to Northern California and then quit my job, ran off to Montana. And, it's kind of like, it sounds like the dream. I work 4 times as hard for about a quarter of the pay, but I got out here to Montana. The podcast and the brand is now called the Wild Initiative. Living Country in the City just didn't seem authentic anymore, and it kind of had me a little pigeonholed anyway. So
I would guess the number of people listening to the podcast that have been to North Central Montana is relatively small. And the only thing smaller would be kind of the city that is closest to where you're at, not exactly a metropolitan location that you have relocated to.
There are smaller towns in Montana, but Havre is a special place. I love it here, but it's one of those places where you talk to anyone in Montana that knows Montana, and they go, "Oh, why?" And, I mean, I live 40 miles outside of Havre, and anybody that knows where Havre is, it's about 43 miles from the Canadian border. So I'm actually closer to more Canadians, I think, at this point than I am anyone in the town I technically live in.
I did a writers event. I've got some family. My dad lives in Red Lodge now, and then I've also got some family just east of Fort Peck Reservoir. And we did I did a prairie dog shoot out there several years ago. And one of the guys that we took out there and did for the media event, he sent me an email not long after and said, just saw this article. And the furthest that you can get in the lower 48 at that time from a Starbucks was actually Circle, Montana, which is where we were at. So I got a note dropped to me and said, hey, thanks for getting me as far away from a Starbucks as humanly possible. It is fun. For those that have not been to Montana, one of the guys on the hunt, we took a day and we went to Fort Peck Reservoir and did some fishing, and the folks that were putting us up said, yeah, we'll run up to the marina real quick and we'll take the pontoon out. We'll do some fishing. And in Montana, run up real quick to the marina is a 90-minute drive because it's Montana. You don't run you're 40 miles from Havre, and that's where you're closest to. So it is a little bit of culture shock because, Walmart is not 10 minutes away.
Actually, we do have a Walmart in town. For me, Walmart is not 10 minutes away. For most people in Havre, it actually is. Right. But it's one of those interesting things, just getting out of, even to an extent, moving to Northern California. But the times I would get out of Southern California, because I grew up there. I did a study abroad in college, but for the most part, that was my life was Southern California. And getting out of that and realizing how the rest of the world and the rest of the United States operates. I remember I went out, I was out in Mississippi, and I can't remember what town we were in, but my girlfriend at the time was like, oh yeah, we're going to this bar. It's not that far away. And I'm like, oh, okay. How far is it? She's like, oh, it's like 30-40 miles. I'm like, in my mind, that's like a 6-hour drive. Right. And I'm like, wait, what? She's like, yeah, it's only going to take us like 30 minutes to get there. I'm like, I've driven an hour to get to a bar that's 10 miles away in Southern California. So, okay. It's a mindset shift. It's something new. So obviously you probably don't regret the move at this point, getting from California to Montana. I know you were pretty excited about it, but what was the big culture shock? Like, what's the one that still kind of like puts you back in your seat in that culture shock mentality? I don't know if there really was anything. There's probably not the answer that you're looking for, but I'm not sure there really was anything. And I think part of it is because I was so mentally prepared, ready for it. Yeah. Burnt out. Like the things that would be, I guess, shocking were the things I was like craving. That's the word I was looking for. Like that I was like craving and wanted so badly that, I'm trying to think of anything. Honestly, like a lot of it is just like the weird little stuff that it's more of an annoyance than anything, but it's like just that weird little stuff where it's like you go to the grocery store and everything feels the same until you look for like that one little brand that just does not exist in this state. And that's moving anywhere new. Yeah. But it was like a lot of those little weird things, or, trying to figure out how the heck to register my truck here. all of that. But it's like I've spent enough time in Montana prior to that. I've done enough traveling around the states, since I grew up. As an adult, I went from, or as a kid, I went from not traveling much to then as an adult after college deciding like, screw this, I'm just gonna go.
Right.
Hey, and so yeah, I wouldn't say there's a really big culture shock or anything like that. There's nothing that really sets me back.
When you made your mind up that you were going to get out of California, did you know that it was going to be Montana, or what was that process of elimination like when you finally decided, okay, Northern California is still not enough, I need to go X?
I mean, it's been Montana for a long while. There was a point when, gosh, 10, 15 years ago where I was considering, I'm like, I'd like to get out of California or at least get out of LA. I was looking around at Texas and Wyoming and Colorado, and I think I looked at like Vermont randomly once. There was a job interview there. I know nothing about Vermont, but there was a wide variety. Montana was always on the list though.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's things I liked about Texas, things I liked about Wyoming, but Montana I just always had this feeling about Montana and this pull towards Montana. And I'd only ever been there once as a kid, and I barely even remembered it. But I always had this draw to Montana. Some of it was the hunting, some of it was just that outdoors, some of it is I would be hard pressed to say there's anywhere else in the United States, if you're taking the whole state into account, that is more beautiful than Montana. Mm-hmm. That's a hill I will die on. And it's just it was always Montana, but there's the back of my head that was like, oh, maybe I'll check out some other places. And then just the more time I spent here, I came out and I'm like, no, there's no question, there's nowhere else. There is nowhere else for me. The lifestyle, the people, just the outdoor opportunity. I mean, that was a huge consideration for me. And some people laugh, we kind of joke about it, but that was a huge consideration for me. Cause I mean, we got Colorado, we got Utah, we got Wyoming, Idaho, all of these great states kind of like all right around here that have fantastic hunting opportunity as a resident. And I sat and I'm like, okay, Montana's the place I want to go, but let me look at this objectively and be like, okay, if I'm a resident in Montana versus a non-resident, if I'm a resident versus a non-resident in Idaho, resident versus non-resident in Wyoming, where am I going to get the most opportunity and honestly, for the best price? Being a resident of Montana and then having access to all of these non-resident tags and opportunity around it, there's no question. Yeah. I mean,
that Montana residency has a way bigger, just in terms of the benefit that it gives you as being there. And then, like you said, if you're going to be a non-resident in Idaho, that's still a popular non-resident location because it is non-resident friendly. Montana, not quite as much, quite a bit more complicated on the Montana side. So yeah, if you're going to plant your flag in one state for sure and reap that resident benefit, Montana, it's tough to come up with an argument for any of those other states.
I mean, and there's part of me that wants to be the guy that's like, oh, it's terrible here. It's
stay away.
Don't move here.
Uh-huh.
I'm very quickly turning into the person talking crap on out-of-staters.
Uh-huh.
I'm such a hypocrite.
Didn't take you long. You became a native real quick.
It took me about 5 minutes after I got my Montana driver's license, I think, to tell someone to move back to California.
Uh-huh.
I'm such an a-hole. But and it is changing. A lot of the states around, it's harder to get tags. I mean, all the over-the-counter elk tags you used to be able to get in Idaho, now you have to put in for.
Yep.
But you look at it, and I can say this because I used to be a non-resident, but we fleece the crap out of non-residents here in Montana.
Right.
And we reap the benefits of it. Like all my tags, like I got my fishing, my hunting, got my general tags for deer and elk. We're guaranteed deer and elk tags, but a general tag every year. I put in for my permits. I put in for my like the kind of the big like ultimate draw tag kind of things. I put in for all of that. I put literally the whole slew. I just checked all the boxes on the Fishing Game website and hit submit. It was under $400.
Yeah.
You know, it was like 350 and change or something like that. And, you know, again, part of me doesn't want to announce that because I don't want any more people looking at the state. Right. But it's just, this is a special place. Montana is about as special of a place as it comes. Just with whether you hunt, fish, you just want to spend time in the outdoors, you just want to enjoy a certain way of life. This is where it's at.
Have you been able to do much fishing yet? I know you're kind of gearing up for some of the hunting stuff. Have you been able to do much fishing yet?
I have. I actually I picked up fly fishing before I moved out to Montana, but I was out here hunting. Picked up my first rod out in Lewistown. Struggled through a lot of it, but I managed to catch my first fish on the fly out in Montana again before I moved out, but about a year later. And, have since done a ton, not ever enough. I mean, I'm not sure if you can ever truly get out on the water enough, but I've had a chance to do a ton of fishing since I've been out here. Not since I moved up to this new place up here in Havre. I need to get out and check out. It's tough learning a new place because it kind of feels, starting over. Like, man, all right, I've got to just. It used to be I could just take an hour, a couple hours, just go out, throw a line for a while, and then come back because I knew my spots where I could go enjoy, have a good time. Versus now, it's more of a commitment because I'm going to explore. It's not just like I can go out and have a good time. I mean, I'm always going to have a good time, but it's tough.
But are you going fishing or are you going catching? And those are two different things. You used to be able to kind of go catching, and now you're kind of fishing.
Exactly. Yeah. Or, I mean, a lot of the times it's even just, oh crap, I can't access here. So now I have to go 45 minutes back the other direction or 30 minutes back the other direction, go around. And I'm still just learning the access and, all the different apps help with that. But until you've actually got boots on the ground, it's hard. It's really hard to get a feel for those places. And I'm just in that process right now. And I've got 7 acres that I'm figuring out what the heck to do with. Like I have no clue what I'm doing out here, and it's great and I love it, but I'm so clueless. I mean, we talked a little bit about this, on our podcast, but I'm learning trapping now. I'm figuring out what to do with this 7 acres of property. Where do I want to plant? Like, what do I need to do to prep for that? Do I want, what am I going to return to more like a natural state, planting trees and working in that regard? Because I want to draw in wildlife, not just to hunt. I mean, don't get me wrong. We got some beefy whitetail here and I want to pull those suckers onto the property for the season because I would not mind taking any of these whitetail. But for the most part, I just want to be surrounded by nature, surrounded by wildlife, and whatever I can do, whether it's game animals or not, whatever I can do to draw more wildlife onto the property, I'm down. And so, I'm working to do that. And I've never been a very focused human being. And so it's very difficult. Like, one day I'm like, I'm all about doing the trapping stuff. And then I'm running over here and I'm like, okay, no, we're focused on planting and trees and these bushes over here. And I'm like, nope. I need to focus on fishing. And I can't, man. There's so much here. I'm a kid in a candy store and it's just so overwhelming. I can't pick what piece of candy I want.
5 lifetimes in Montana and you'd still have to-do lists without going anywhere else of the things that you didn't make it to. So, and that's if you just spent all your time doing what you wanted to do. And, you've kind of reshuffled the deck a little bit to be focused more on what you want to be doing anyway, but still like there's just no shortage of things to do and ways to invest your time. And it's a good place to be doing all that for sure.
Well, and I mean, I'm sure puberty hit for a second there. Ooh. I'm sure
it was bound to happen eventually.
It's finally, it only took almost 40 years. Working in the hunting industry, well, it gets you around hunting more often, and don't get me wrong, I would not trade working in the hunting industry forever for, working in automotive or any of these industries ever again. Like, would not trade this for a million years. But so often it precludes a lot of time hunting too, because we're busy during the hunting season. And, me running my own business, there's some times when things are tight and I have to make a choice. I'm like, do I want to go versus, just taking a day off to go fishing? It's like, do I want to lose money today?
Right.
The money, money that could be paying ensuring that I still have this property in a year.
Right.
Money that could be helping me replace the molding in my house, that doesn't currently have molding. If we don't even want to talk about that. And it's tough to make those decisions sometimes when it comes down to critical stuff. And I spend a lot more time working. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, but it's not always working. I mean, I'm sure you get people asking you all the time, but it's very rarely work in the hunting industry and you get to go hunting all the time. We're not all Randy Newberg, homie. It doesn't work that way.
Well, and I mean, even Randy would tell you that the amount of time that he spends doing other things, and I feel like it's come up a lot in the podcast over the last couple of months, and maybe people are tired of hearing me say it because, you sound spoiled, but yeah, it's hunting adjacent. And I would much rather that my to-do list has something to do with hunting than not. But you have to enjoy being around it as much as you enjoy doing it. And that's not always something that's feasible. So trying to find that happy place of what you're doing being fulfilling enough to go along with it, being hunting adjacent, and still getting out of it what you need out of it. Not always easy.
Well, and for a lot of people, that's going to ruin it for them. If it turns into a job, if they have to be around it all the time in a way that's not them actually hunting, that's gonna sour them on that stuff. And so for a lot of people, you know what?
It's not the right fit.
Just find a job that gives you ample vacation days.
The one that I tell people, and again, I've mentioned it before, maybe people are sick of hearing it, I say, if you really love hunting, get in the asphalt business, because you're going to work really hard through the summer and you're going to make a lot of money. And then as soon as the weather turns and you want to be in a tree, you can be. There's not much else that would work better for me, but I know that it's not necessarily the best choice for a lot of folks.
Asphalt, construction, concrete.
Yep. Any of those. So, and you've kind of got another little, I don't know if I'd call it a side hustle, but you, like you said, self-admitted squirrel, bouncing from one thing to the next. And what's it been, about 3 years that you started, or has it been longer than that you've kind of messed around with this whole blade making thing?
About 1.5 years.
See, it feels longer than that.
any time spent following me feels like an eternity. It's, well, if you've ever followed along with one of my hunting trips, it probably does feel like an eternity. Is this guy ever gonna kill anything? No, yeah. So I picked up bladesmithing, and I feel like that's one of those things that as a dude, it's just like ingrained into all of us. Like, like not the whole desire to become a bladesmith, but like, I need to make a knife. Like,
well, I think and play with fire. I mean, who among us at 8 years old didn't go over to the brush pile and take a half burnt stick out and grab another stick? And, we've all seen the blacksmith and the bladesmith stuff and start hammering away on it and shaping that blade up. So, yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just, and I'm very much one of those type of people that I see something and I have to learn how to do it. It doesn't matter what it is. I need to learn that skill. Part of it's the ADHD. Part of it's probably a desire just to be more self-sufficient and more capable. But I had Laura Zara on the podcast. For those who don't know, she's a survivalist. She's been on Naked and Afraid. She's done a lot of bladesmithing. And she had a book out, just a basics of bladesmithing book, and just kind of support my guest. I bought the book, and I kind of went from there. Got the supplies and started fooling around in my garage. My first knife was absolutely heinous. It was bad, like really bad. But it was a knife. Right now, mostly I use it kind of as a utility knife. Now it opens a lot of boxes and then goes back into hiding. But I made some really cool knives after that. I tried a bunch of new stuff. I was fortunate enough to similar to the kind of the hunting stuff, where I just went straight for the people that really knew their stuff. I was fortunate enough to really meet some cool people. Montana has this really deep history for bladesmithing. A lot of the guys that really defined modern bladesmithing are Montanans. And I got to meet a lot of really cool people, and they've shown me tips. Had a buddy that I always joke. The best way I can refer to it is I forget that not everyone just meets random strangers from the internet all the time, and that for some people that's kind of weird. So he had started following me on Instagram, and I think we had commented like back and forth, like once or twice. I'd seen he was local, and so whatever, we kind of interacted. And he sends me this message, and he'd had a few beverages, adult beverages, and the best part is it was like this 6 video message. You know how it'll like Instagram like split it up, so it's like this 6 video message, and it scrambled up the videos, so it was even more confusing. But he was basically asking if he had all this bladesmithing gear. He was a bladesmith. He'd moved to Montana from Georgia, but he didn't have anywhere to work. And he's like, I see you work in your garage. Could I bring over some of my nicer stuff? You can use it, as long as I can come over on weekends and hammer some steel. And I'm just like, yeah, of course. That's awesome. Come on, random stranger, come hang out in my house. But for him, apparently it's like a weird thing to ask people. Surprise, surprise. And the best way I can describe it is like, it was the same kind of vibe you'd get from like somebody asking their father-in-law for like the daughter's hand in marriage. It's like that kind of nervous, like, so excuse me, but I was really, I had this question that, but so he came over and he just showed me an incredible amount when it comes to blacksmithing and bladesmithing, showed me a lot of tricks and tips. And I just love to try stuff that I, quote unquote, shouldn't try as a new bladesmith. I try a lot more complex things, and sometimes they look bizarre as hell and they don't quite work out, but it's kind of like that, like the whole premise of getting into archery, and maybe you shouldn't start shooting at 50 yards, but if you can do it at 50 yards, now 30 feels a lot better. Maybe your first hunt shouldn't be a DIY solo archery elk hunt in Idaho, but everything's a lot easier after that. You learn whether you fail or succeed. Doing it will always teach you something if you approach it from that perspective. And that exactly same concept I use in marketing. Not a particularly dangerous line of work, as we would say, but still there's a lot of people that take a very vanilla, very stale route to things. That, okay, what did you learn from that? Well, nothing. Okay, why should I care that you did that then? So no, it's something different to try for sure. Oh yeah. Like I said, whether it's with bladesmithing or hunting or any of that stuff, I'm the type of person I'll throw myself in as, balls to the wall as aggressively as I can. Because I want to give it a chance. And 2, I'm an all or nothing kind of guy. I have no midway. But the bladesmithing thing's been great. I'm slowly kind of developing a new brand with that.
Yeah, I was going to tell where
yes
can people
and no.
find that, because you try to keep some of that separate from your other stuff. So where do they find that at?
Yeah, so you can still find it all on the Wild Initiative. I still post on my Instagram from that. I'm kind of, the brand I'm starting up is called Wild Montana Forage. It has an Instagram. It's just Wild Montana Forage. I repost pretty much everything from that account on my Wild Initiative. But if anyone wants to go give it a follow, I think I have a chef's knife up for sale now. I've got some hunting knives coming up, and actually some more chef's knives coming up that are huge, and they're going to be so freaking cool.
Nice.
I made them a little bit bigger than intended, so they're going to be fun.
Awesome. That's what I was going to say. I know when I don't want to keep you too long, we'll kind of wrap it up here. Where can people find Wild Initiative and Wild Montana Forge? How can they keep up with what's going on in Sam's world?
Yeah. Pretty much if you put the Wild Initiative into any sort of search bar on the internet, I will appear up in one fashion or another. I was about to make a joke and I had to pull it back because I'm trying to be respectable for the SPYPOINT podcast here.
Perfect.
But Instagram, Facebook, the website's thewildinitiative.com. You can find me on any and all podcast platforms. I think if it exists, I've submitted my podcast to it.